Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Morgan with 11.3, Simplifying Rational Expressions. After this lesson, you'll be able to state excluded values, simplify, and find zeros of rational expressions and functions. The first thing we're going to talk about are excluded values. Excluded values are values that cause the denominator to be zero. So we're going to state the excluded values for each rational expression. And when we do that, what we're really interested in is what's in our denominator. And we want to make sure that that doesn't come out to be zero. So to figure out what our excluded value would be is we just set it equal to 0 and solve it. So an example A, B cannot be equal to -7 because that would result in a denominator of 0. In example B, now with example B, we see this quadratic, so we need to factor it into something that multiplies to -12 and adds to -1. So we would have a minus 4 and a plus 3 equals 0. So if I were to solve each of these, I would have a cannot be 4 and a cannot be -3, because again, that would make my denominator 0. And then in example C, I'm just going to solve that out to find my excluded value, which in this case, if I were to divide by 2 on both sides, in this case, our x could not be -½ So again, anything that causes our denominator to be 0 is bad news. Okay. We're going to simplify and state excluded values of variables. Well, the first thing is in the bottom, the only thing that would be a problem is that c could not equal 0, because that would wipe out my denominator, so that's my excluded value. Then I just need to simplify, so I'm going to multiply my numbers together, and that gets me -42. And then I'm going to multiply my variables together. Now remember, c squared times c to the third is c to the fifth, and all over 21 c to the fourth. Now, -42 over 21 simplifies to -2. I could put it over 1. You don't necessarily have to. And then c to the fifth over c to the fourth is just going to leave me with a c to the first on the top, which I don't even need that c to the first. So my final answer for this is just going to be -2c. Again, we're going to be simplifying. We're going to state excluded values of our variables. So the first thing we're going to want to do is factor this bottom piece. So we want stuff that multiplies to -36 and adds to -5. So that would be -9 and +4. positive 4. And for our excluded values, then our x cannot be equal to 9, and our x cannot be equal to negative 4, because that would cause my denominator to be 0. So we've got our excluded values. Now we just need to factor. Another thing that I'll draw your attention to is up here on the top, we're going to factor that out as well. So we'll have 4, and if I reverse distribute, I'll have x plus 4. So my x plus 4 simplify, and that leaves me with 4 over x minus 9, and that is my simplified version. Finally, what is a 0 of a function? Any value for x that turns our function equal to 0 is going to be a 0 for that function. So we're going to find the zeros of each function, which basically means that we're going to set this equal to 0 and see what we get out of it. So we will first simplify. So we want stuff that multiplies to 7 and adds to 8. So we will have x plus 7, x plus 1, all over x plus 1. And that's going to be equal to 0. Our x plus 1s are going to cancel out. So all I have left is x plus 7 equals 0, which would give me x equals negative 7 as my 0 for that function. Next, we're going to look at example B. And, I don't think that's enough space. Okay. All right. So we're going to simplify this thing. And we want stuff that multiplies to negative 15. And it's going to add to 2. So we are going to have, what is that, x plus 5 and x minus 3. Should specify that we are working on this piece right here. And all over x plus 1. So in this case, there's nothing that simplifies, which is kind of a bummer. But we're just going to take each piece and set it equal to 0. We only need to do that with we only need to set the numerator equal to 0 because our denominator equaling 0 is undefined. So we will have x plus 5 equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0. So our x's, our zeros of our function would be x equals -5 and x equals 3. And those are your notes for simplifying rational expressions.